waves crash down, we can die in silence, or we can live out loud. As the waves crash down, there's no turning back. Raise your fist, stand proud. As the waves crash down, we can die in silence, or we can live out loud. As the waves crash down, as the waves crash down and down and down and down and down. As the waves crash down and down and down and down and down. As the waves crash down.
Welcome to episode 23 of I Hope You Suffer. My name is Nathan.
I'm Kit.
And this week, instead of a movie, we have a special guest, Nathan Gray from Boysetsfire, The Casting Out, Am Heresy, solo stuff. Just gonna talk horror movies in general, doing something a little different. So, what's up, Nathan?
Not much. Just hanging out, talking to you.
So I guess obvious first question is, do you remember kind of your first experience with horror movies?
Yeah, I mean, my first experience with horror movies were the Universal monsters, Dracula and the Wolfman and Frankenstein and the Mummy, Creature from the Black Lagoon, like all of that. My mom and I used to watch them together, and I wrote a book called Until the Darkness Takes Us, and it actually takes up a whole chapter of that about those monsters and how I related to them. I guess an interesting story of just how I saw horror movies at the time and those monsters and how misunderstood they were and how I connected to them on that level. All at the same time, connecting mostly to the Wolfman was a big favorite of mine, but I was always sort of aspiring. It was like I was the Wolfman, but always aspiring to be Dracula, because he was the, you know what I mean? Like he was the badass. He was the one that it didn't really matter, like who was coming for him. The other ones were sort of always plagued by who they were, whereas Dracula was just like, "Hey, I'm this, screw you." You know?
He just kind of like reveled in it.
Yeah. So he was like the what I wanted to be, and the other monsters were sort of where I was at.
I remember watching a lot of the like Universal and then like the Hammer horror stuff a lot as a kid, and it was the same thing of like watching them with my parents. And like it's interesting watching those as a kid where you're just like, oh, these are just like cool monsters, and then watching them again as adults and you're just like, oh, there's some like deep-seated shit going on in these movies.
Oh yeah. And that's what I think, like when you're younger and especially like if you're younger and sort of feel misunderstood and all of that kind of stuff, and you're sort of an outcast to an extent, you get them, but you get them on a different level, and then you grow up and you go, oh, now I understand why I related to them so hard, so it's interesting.
Yeah, it's definitely like you definitely see it as like somebody that like kind of grew up where my parents were into like heavy metal and punk, so that's what I grew up in.
Gotcha.
Like you definitely kind of see that in a lot of those early horror movie characters.
Yeah. Oh yeah, without a doubt. And also this the idea of them being it's sort of like these monsters, especially like the Wolfman, it's sort of like a representation of our base of, I guess, us attacking our own base instincts, which I always thought was really interesting about those monsters, is that, and with Frankenstein and all of these things, it was humankind attacking itself almost, and what it was trying to hide by assigning certain, it was social commentary on what we hide and what we deem to be sinful and wrong. And those monsters were a characterization of those wrongdoings and those things that we were ashamed of. So society was fighting against them, and that's why those of us who were more of outcasts identified with those monsters, I think.
For sure. Like, I definitely remember being like heavy into the first Frankenstein movie in like junior high.
Yeah.
And like doing like book report, or not, reports on just kind of like the like social aspects of just being like the outcast of that movie, but being like completely misunderstood. Where like the scene where he throws the girl in the water because he doesn't understand the difference.
Yeah.
And like,
so I've got. Oh, go ahead, Nathan.
Go ahead. You're good.
I was gonna say I've got an extreme poser admission to make, and that is that I have never seen the Universal Monster movies.
Oh dear Lord!
I know.
What in the world?
That doesn't. Well, so this podcast is based on the fact that Kit and I both love like complete garbage movies for like horror genre. So it's like right. One of the movies we watched was called Nudist Colony of the Dead. So it's like, it's just like nonsense like that.
I see what level you're on now. Yes.
I was raised on slasher films, so just the trashier, the more into it I always was.
Gotcha. And I'm completely the opposite. That stuff is exactly what turns me off in horror movies.
Fair.
It's funny because either, I like the old school Universal monsters and there being sort of that social commentary to it, or I love movies like psychological. I would call it a horror movie, Jacob's Ladder.
That's one I definitely wanted to bring up because I remember when I was messaging you, then you said that, and I was like, that movie is amazing, and I want to talk about that.
But the stuff where it's like, the stuff where it's just a bunch of slashing up teenagers and stuff, I've never gotten it because it's just been like, okay, well, that's like, I can watch that on the news. That's I don't care about that. That's not really delving into anything deep for me. It's just more of like, oh, they cut up and raped some more teenagers. Great. Okay.
Like I've always had my feet in kind of both camps where like if you look at like what I would probably say my top 5 like horror movies are, you would have like, The Thing and
that's a great one.
Let the Right One In, and like these moody kind of existential movies. Right. But then I'm just like, oh, like I love like Friday the 13th Part 3 and stuff like that. So
that's kind of where I'm at too. Like I love trashy slashers, obviously, and sleepaway camp stuff like that. Right. But I really like slow atmospheric build type horror movies. Those are absolutely number one. Stuff like Alien, I think, is probably my favorite movie.
Oh yeah,
ever.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the newer stuff coming out from like A24, like The Witch and Hereditary, stuff like that.
Well, so Nathan, have you seen Mandy by any chance?
I haven't.
I think based on just kind of like the little bit I know of some of the stuff you like, I think you would enjoy it because it's extremely moody and like it's beautiful to look at. And like, I don't know, I definitely would suggest maybe checking that out if you get a chance.
I'll check it out. I have actually heard a lot of good things about it. I just haven't had the time to check it out.
Oh yeah, like when we were like talking about like scheduling this, I was like, well, he's going on tour, he's getting ready to play a couple shows, he just released like 2 live albums. So right. Not a lot of time on my hands, but not totally a bad thing to have going on when you're an artist or like a musician.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. It's great.
So, Jacob's Ladder.
Yes.
I remember seeing that movie, and ever since I've seen it, I've had in the back of my head that every movie I see where something happens to a character where it looks like they're going to die at the beginning, I just assume that entire movie is a Jacob's Ladder situation.
Yes.
So, like, I can't think about, like, Grease the movie.
Right.
Where, like, Sandra, like, is about to drown at the beginning, and I'm like, oh, the rest of this movie is just, like, a fever dream of her, like, brain losing oxygen.
I know exactly what's going to happen. Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah,
like,
I've had that same issue with any movie that even remotely sort of treads near that. But I've watched Jacob's Ladder probably a good 25 times in my life.
Yeah,
so,
it's so good.
I feel like you sort of have to, though. I think even like the first 5 times I watched it, there were parts that I went, whoa, wait, I didn't see that before. Like, you know, there's a very pivotal part in it where not the wife, the girlfriend, she does this thing. It's this quick thing where they're getting into a fight and she says, "Get out," and her teeth get all weird and like it's like a quick flash. And it's like, I didn't see that before, and that is creepy as hell. Like, but it shows into the different characters and stuff, and there's those little things, and it's just such a well done movie, and it has these perfect moments of where you can settle in and feel comfortable for a minute, and then it goes back to just brain screwing you. But like for a minute, like at the chiropractor's, you know, Louis, and he's this very comforting, wonderful being, you know, and then all of a sudden, like, oh, here we are, we're back at having the hell scared out of me. Wonderful. But it has a great balance to it, which I don't see in some other movies where where there's this balance of you get to take a breath for a second. You get to think for a minute. You get to, you know, as opposed to just like go. That drives me nuts in any kind of movie.
Yeah, I think there was like an aspect that's the thing that like a lot of the early 80s and like late 70s kind of horror movies that I always enjoyed, that like they breathe.
Yeah.
And like it's not like, as much as I do enjoy a lot of kind of like over the top crazy slasher movies, I do always end up coming back to stuff like even like Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula movie.
Yeah.
And like, yep. Like stuff that's not completely like something I can like watch and not feel stressed out about, I guess.
Right.
And I feel like, especially with like Jacob's Ladder, there's a lot of stuff like with Del Toro and then like Cronenberg, where just like the weird aspects of it like draw me in a lot as well.
Yeah. It's same thing with like The Shining. You know, there's that. There's so much metaphor. There's so much symbolism. There's so much that there's an interesting aspect to it as well. That I really need a movie that's going to be a horror movie. To me, really needs to be intellectually stimulating as well. It can't just be shocks, because that I hate that, actually. Like, number one, I hate like jumping. Like it doesn't do anything for me. It just makes me nervous, and I hate it. I'm already a nervous person. I don't need that. But I also really hate when it delves into this almost like torture porn sort of thing, like Hostel. And so I hate Eli Roth.
Yeah,
I absolutely hate the man.
Who keeps giving him money? They should.
Right.
So this is my thing with Eli Roth, is like I see him in documentaries, and I'm always like, this dude is like so like waxes like poetic about horror movies, and I'm like, I want to like him, and then I watch one of his movies, and I'm like, no, I don't.
You
like
have used none of anything you've learned or said you know about anything in what you just did. Like, you just did this gross out, horrific, like, how far can I push a limit thing that, like, that's just not interesting to me.
I agree. I think the only one of like that whole kind of like quote unquote torture porn thing that I ever like. We've talked about them, like the Saw movies on here a handful of times. And like, I think the first one holds up mostly because the twist at the end is just like insane. And like, I think mostly because I ended up seeing it in a theater kind of like on what are we going to do? It's like Friday. I guess we'll just go see this movie. Like I had no idea what it was.
Right.
And went into it and just like the end of it, like blew my mind. So it's like, I've always had kind of like a fond affection for that, but then the rest of it, like every other, like Hostel especially, stuff like that, I'm like, I got no interest.
Yeah.
Have either of y'all seen Terrifier? Because that's how I feel about that film. Everyone was freaking out about it, like on Twitter. Oh my god, Terrifier's so good, and like the clown's so creepy. I watched that, and I mean it's the same thing where it's just it's bad torture porn type stuff, and I
would say
don't
even
do that.
Slasher films have something over that kind of crap. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's something to a good slasher film, which I'm not super into anyway, as I've said, but that's even got a little bit more on top of that. That's like, it's like, I don't know, it's just the waste bin of horror movies to me.
I don't know. You haven't seen Nudist Colony of the Dead, which is so far our low point.
Well, some things I think are so campy and horrible that they're good, you know? But and anything called that has got to be on that level.
Like,
you know?
we spend a lot of time kind of just digging through, like, the lower ranks of, like, Prime Video.
Right,
where, like, it's just everything's accepted. Because, so, like, next week we're doing a movie called Space Clown. Like,
already, that's ridiculous.
Yes. And so, like, it's usually we try and find stuff that, like, looks like it's real stupid, but, like, we can have fun with it.
Yeah.
But
like with the Leprechaun that was in space.
Leprechaun.
Yeah.
That one was amazingly bad and good. Like, it was so intensely bad, it was good.
We back the Leprechaun movies hard on this podcast.
especially the space one.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that is just it's amazing.
We have a running thing where almost every movie that, like, we've done where they kind of tease a sequel, but it never happens. We're just like, we'll go into. It
needs to wind up in space.
Yeah, we're like, go to space.
Yeah, just put it in space. That's fine. Jaws, space. Put it there.
Always works out well.
Which is another movie that I would say that I absolutely adored was Jaws.
Oh, for sure.
Jaws 1 and 2. 3 started to lose me, but 1 and 2 I really enjoyed.
I like 3 for just like the camp of the 3D.
Yeah.
And like, I think it was a wasted idea where, like, having Jaws set in like a SeaWorld type place is a good idea. Right. Just kind of not done well in that movie. But I have a feeling that almost everybody that's even remotely interested in horror is just like, yes, Jaws is a perfect movie.
Yeah, without a doubt.
I love the Jaws series because I get to enjoy it on two different levels. There's, Jaws is a masterpiece, and it's just an incredible character study, and I could watch it endlessly.
Oh, yeah.
And then on the other end, there's Jaws the Revenge, which is one of the dumbest movies I've ever seen, but it's absolutely fascinating that they made any of the decisions they made and got it made into a movie.
One of my son's toys is going off. 1 second.
Oh, you're fine.
Yeah. Sorry, but yes, correct. I agree with that. Yes.
So I think especially going off stuff like Jaws, and we have done a bunch of really stupid shark movies on here, like Ice Sharks. For one.
Jeez.
Right. And
I'm a bad shark film connoisseur.
Like, seeing Jaws as a kid, like, to this day, I'm just like, I want nothing to do with the ocean.
Right.
So was there ever a movie that you saw that you were just like, nope, this fucked me up to the point where I don't want anything to do with whatever it's about ever again?
Well, I mean, Jacob's Ladder definitely took away a lot of sleep from me when I first saw it. I mean, it was... I remember the very first time I saw it was at a friend's house, and leaving their house was difficult. Like just walking out to the car, getting into the car, driving.
Yeah.
I was like, don't look in the rearview mirror. Do not look in the rearview mirror. Like, it was, and that was like for days after that first time I saw it, screwed me up royally. And then I had to keep watching it.
Yeah.
But you know what actually also messed me up terribly? Funny enough, Pet Sematary. The woman in the attic.
Oh yeah.
Oh God. Like I remember
No attics ever.
Oh no. Yeah, exactly. Like it took me a while before I was able to go up into an attic. Like it was like now I'm fine. I love attics. But it was that scene just tore me to shreds. Like that was bad.
Have you seen the trailer for the new version they're doing yet?
No, no. I heard it was coming out, but
I'm intrigued, but mostly just because John Lithgow's in it.
Right. I just did a cover with some friends of Pet Sematary. The song, the Ramones song.
The most perfect song in a movie.
Yeah, they did my friends, they have this this band thing they do called Satanic Panic, and it's like a very like almost Hammer film soundtrack like sound, and they did Pet Sematary to that sort of sound.
Oh, that sounds
with
amazing.
electronics
awesome.
and stuff. You have to look it up. It's on Bandcamp under Satanic Panic, and I did the vocals on it, and it was a lot of fun to do.
Like there's been like a bunch of people that like, you know, after starting this podcast, I just started following like other horror podcasts and whatnot, and where they drop the trailer, like people have been revisiting it, and it just seems like the consensus that's just like, this is the best use of a song for, you know, like a band writing a
without
song
a doubt.
for a movie or whatever.
Yeah.
And I did have, so I've always had like the idea, like I've always liked the idea of people being interviewed for subjects that aren't what they do.
Right.
Which was kind of the idea when I reached out to you. I was like, I want to talk to him about movies. I don't want to necessarily talk to him about like Boysetsfire or whatever.
Right.
Because that's just what everybody interviews him about.
This is true.
So, but I had reached out to a couple people that I knew were like huge fans of yours.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them asked specifically was from the band Allfather from England. They were like, if he could pick one Boysetsfire song that he thinks would complement or like fit well into a horror movie, what song would it be?
Oh, that is difficult.
I would even extend it out to any of the stuff you've worked on, even maybe past Boysetsfire.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel like
I think there's a couple of I Am Heresy songs that would probably work.
Yeah, I was gonna say I Am Heresy or any of the like the collective, the stuff.
Yeah, the collective stuff. Actually, that's probably the best place to go. Would be the collective stuff, because it just has a darker, synth-laden sound to it that I think would fit a lot better. I couldn't specifically pick out a song, I don't think, but but I think there's definitely something in there. It's a great question, and most great questions can't be answered.
Yeah.
Just, you know.
I thought I was like, that's a good. I've never thought, because I think we were discussing like the high wire escape artist being on Daredevil.
Right.
And he was like, ask this.
Oh, God, that was so disappointing. I mean, not to branch off into comic books, but
I will
to
talk
branch
about
off,
comic books all day.
But to branch off real quick, my two favorite superheroes in the world are Batman and Daredevil. They are the same person in the DC and Marvel universe, basically. Yes. You know what I mean? They completely, like, they're the counter of each other, and they're my favorite. And I don't know why Ben Affleck keeps having to fuck with both of them. It's just, I don't understand. Like, funny enough, I actually like Ben Affleck as Bruce Wayne. I don't care for him as Batman.
I agree.
Very
completely.
bizarre. Like, yeah, but anyway, point being, when we were asked to do that soundtrack, I nearly lost my mind. I was like, I was like a kid in a candy store, like losing my mind. And then I went and saw it.
Yeah.
I have a gold record from that movie that I don't keep in my house. I'm so ashamed of damn movie.
You should just like Photoshop the Charlie Cox from the Netflix series over top of it.
Yeah, cool. And that on next, and that's brilliant, by the way.
I agree.
Love that. But that redeemed it completely, and I was like, they should just do this kind of stuff on TV because obviously movies don't do it any justice. Like,
yeah,
you can build a character a little bit better, I think, especially with a character like Daredevil. I think it's important to have a lot of that build up and a lot of that character development that you can't do in just one movie.
I love this because I can nerd out fucking
forever all
about
night.
This shit. Like,
yeah.
And I think
it's true.
The one disappointing thing for me at the moment is that Daredevil got canceled as they were kind of digging into like the Born Again storyline.
Yep.
And like that's like from the first season, I was like, "Oh my god, they're going for Born Again."
Here it comes, right?
And
exactly.
It got canceled, and I was like, "No."
Any fan was like, "Oh, here it comes!"
And like I could,
and then it was like, "Oh, you're gonna stop there, are you?" Okay.
Well, like I could watch those like 15-minute one-shot fight scenes, like all day.
Oh, without a doubt.
Like
but like you said, that was like the nerd version of Quidus Interruptus. Really?
Yeah. It's like I had the other question that one of our mutual friends, Katie Cotrill, who's been on this podcast before.
Oh yeah.
She asked, "What horror movie would you pick to describe the current state of the U.S.?"
Oh, there's so many fitting. The Blob comes to mind.
Oh, yes.
It comes to mind. The Blob.
I feel like It is a pretty on point.
Yeah, pretty on point. Almost anything. Okay, hey, bud. Sorry, 1 second, guys.
Oh, you're fine. Usually my dog is
I'll be up when I'm done.
Attacking me the entire time, so.
Right. But that's funny enough. It's only difficult because there's so many. You know.
I think we could just stick with the Blob because.
Yeah, the Blob I think works really well.
It's a good choice.
If only that Blob were orange.
Yeah.
It would fit so well. Just getting bigger and bigger as it eats and destroys everything good.
Yeah, it's a fun.
Now
time.
it's getting sad. It just went from funny to sad.
It's a fun
real
time
quick.
being in this country.
Yeah. Actually, it's not a horror movie, but I guess Mad Max would work too. That's where we're headed.
Yeah, it's just Fury Road.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
Fury Road. Yeah,
strapped to the front of a fucking speeding car playing guitar.
Right.
So I guess kind of going back to Dracula especially, do you have other versions of that character, or maybe even extending it to just vampires in general, like other movies that you enjoy past kind of the original Universal?
Right. I couldn't do it. I was going to try to be very serious and get into the Twilight series, but I couldn't.
I
think it would have been really funny if I could have kept my composure. And I don't know anything about it really, and I couldn't remember any of their names, so I started cracking myself up. I was like, I can't.
That would have been a perfect thing.
You want to hear disappointment in silence real quick.
Just deadpan Twilight.
Right,
and we're done here.
All of a sudden.
All right, so we have to go.
All of a sudden, you get a call like a week from now that's like, so all of the European dates are starting to cancel.
Right. I would say. I mean, I feel like most of the the vampire stuff that I would date back before, like Nosferatu and things like that. I'm not sure if there's anything that like the only thing I can think of that's like more recent that like I really like was sort of a comedy was the What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh, so good.
Which is brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. And that whole the premise, everything is just amazing.
It's brilliant. Have you seen that, Kit?
I have not.
The werewolf vampire like
the werewolves, not swearwolves.
Yes. And even the part like where the one guy like he tries to eat human food and he's puking up blood and he can't stop, and it's like these horrific things that it makes you laugh though. It's absolutely hilarious.
It's like I put off watching it because like I think I saw a bunch of people talking about it and I was like, I don't know, this looks kind of dumb. And then I watched it and I was like, this is maybe the best vampire movie of the last decade at least. Like it's
without a doubt, absolutely magnificent.
Like there's like I've been kind of a big fan of, like I said earlier, like Let the Right One In.
Yeah.
And then A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night.
Oh yeah.
Which is
that's
phenomenal.
A really good one. Yeah.
And like I feel like there's a lot of people trying to work vampire mythology into kind of areas that aren't just like, well, here's another Dracula movie.
Right.
Like,
they did the same thing with zombies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And to very different effects a lot of the time, but
which is a thing that I've never been interested in. The whole zombie thing, people get real into that. It just always like, there's not much to it that really thrills me. And I'll be honest, like sort of, I think it was maybe since Thriller that I was like, ugh, I don't like that.
Fair assessment.
It's just sort of gross and makes me want to puke. I don't know. Zombies just gross me out.
I like zombies, but I like the George Romero.
And like Romero zombies,
yeah,
and that's about as much as I like.
Yeah,
right.
Like I like those and like Return of the Living Dead and like kind of the general classics. But then once you get into like fast zombies and all that kind of shit, I'd count me out.
Sure.
So I don't know. Like I definitely wanted to get to the new live albums you just released. Mm-hmm. And we were talking for a minute before about, like, congratulations again. Like, the first pressing pretty much sold out.
Yes.
Very quickly, which rules.
Yes. It's amazing.
And they are both excellent.
Thank you.
I am a very, very big fan of Feral Hymns, so hearing all that stuff in that kind of, like, the setting. Mm-hmm. Like, do you want to explain kind of the, like, how those shows were set up?
Yeah, sure. I mean, number one, first, I am just shocked at how well a live album did. And like a double live album. Like it makes very little sense to me. That I have never personally liked live albums. And I remember Oisey that runs End Hits that put it out. I was like, really? Are you sure you want to do this? He was like, no, you should do it. You should do it. Like people aren't able to come out to these shows. It's I can only do these in Europe right now, so he's like, people are going to want to hear it. I was like, all right, we'll do it, but I don't think it's going to work. And then it sells out, which ended up with a lot of taunting texts from him. It's like, who called it? Oh, shut up, dude. But it was cool, like listening back to that and going, okay, I get it. Like it's a cool experience to listen back to it. But the reason why I ended up doing it was, number one, it's two really cool locations. One of them is in a literal cave.
Yeah.
And the other one is in a really big church in Wiesbaden. It's an active church, actually, which was funny because they actually got in touch with me because it's not hard to Google me. And they were concerned about letting me into their church with associations and things I've said. And so it was cool though, because it was a really neat moment of being able to say, look, I have these certain belief systems, I have this certain idea and stuff like that, but I would never come into your place of worship and, act like an asshole, basically, or, put this on you, which it's cool because if you listen to the album, obviously I speak to a lot of things of why I had a lot of anger towards religion and things like that, and things that happened to me in the past. And being able to go through something like that and speaking with the people in that church and being able to find common ground and things like that was actually very healing for that process, which is great. You know what I mean? To be able to no longer just be angry at something, but to be able to find understanding in it, even though it's not my thing, So that was a cool process. But also at the same time, I want to document every step of the way, because this isn't going to be the same every album. It's not going to be the same. I did the collective stuff. I'm now doing this that's like purely solo stuff. And the next EP that I'm going to be putting out towards the, I think in the summer, I'm going to be putting out an EP with 3 songs. They're going to be different. They're going to have percussion on them. And then going into next year, when I'll be putting out a full length, it'll be like a full band sound.
Oh,
So I want to document everything in its most purest form. So that's what this live album was for, was to document that moment, because you have Feral Hymns, which is the documentation of that studio version of that. But then I wanted to get that live feel and the storyteller aspect of it, because also I'm not going to keep doing that. I'm not going to talk for 10 minutes between every damn song, I wanted to do that once, get that out, and then start moving forward to where, okay, now I'll focus on the music, and now I'll focus on this, and now I'll do this, you know what I mean? And keep reinventing what it is, and the atmosphere of what I do. So it's not the same show, it's not the same thing every time.
For sure. And it's like, I think especially with Feral Hymns, like I'm coming from it where, God, I found Boysetsfire in 97 in like 8th grade or something, 7th, 8th, 9th grade.
Yeah.
Like I bought that initial Extreme comp.
Yeah,
and
that's where a lot of people heard Boysetsfire.
Yeah, like I had just discovered Cave-In, and I was like, I bought that, and I was like, oh man, I love this song. And I went back to Hot Topic the next day and bought The Day the Sun Went Out.
That's awesome.
And like, so watching, like, it's been very kind of fascinating following your career from like that point to like through like, Boysetsfire into like the Casting Out, into like I Am Heresy, which is like the complete opposite of the Casting Out.
Right.
And then like just into like the collective and the solo stuff, and especially like I say this as somebody coming from like 22 years or something of listening to your music, that I think Feral Hymns is the best thing you've put out.
Thank you.
And like listening to the live versions of some of those songs, especially the album that's in a cave, is just kind of phenomenal.
Awesome. And that's obviously something that's going to be wonderful for me to hear, because that is purely me. You know what I mean? There obviously I want people to appreciate the work I've done with friends, and those are very important works for me. Boysetsfire, I Am Heresy, The Casting Out, The Collective, and even I did a couple of things with a bunch of German guys called the New Recruits. Yeah, and like stuff like that, which was a lot of fun to do. But and obviously those are going to be things that I want people to notice and love and experience. But this is literally me. You know what I mean? So for this to get praise, for this to be someone's favorite album and stuff like that means the world to me. It means more than any of that, So that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Like, I mean, I think I've all, like, especially with like Boysetsfire, like a lot of people are just like, oh, like After the Eulogy is the album, and I'm like, no, it's the Misery Index, like
right.
I've always kind of was like appreciated the like, I feel like the albums that most people don't. I don't know if that sounds weird, but
right.
Like, I feel like there's more. I feel like, especially with Feral Hymns, it's a lot more. Like you said, it's you, and it's like more emotionally heavy, I guess.
Yeah.
And I think I don't know. I love that aspect to it.
Right.
I also wanted to. You're getting ready soon to go on tour in Europe again, correct?
Yes.
And, like, when is that?
I will. Let's see. I will be going in to the studio at the end of this month to do my EP, and then March 2nd I'll fly out to Europe.
Okay, nice. So yeah, I feel like, and like we have a handful of people that listen in Europe, and most of them are probably already aware because I think they're people that I'm friends with that already are aware of you. But I would definitely go see it, like based on those live albums alone and kind of stuff I've seen on like YouTube or whatever. Like it looks like an incredible show. So
it is. It's absolutely amazing. There is a different. I think there's a different feel and culture over. I mean, there obviously is, but there, as far as music's concerned, especially in Germany, where music is a deeper part of their culture and the way they experience life, whereas in the U.S. and even like in the U.K., I think it's more of a and not to everyone, but to the majority, I think it's sort of a background thing. It's sort of a fun thing on the side, you know?
Yeah.
It's a second thought. Not only that, but you've got so many bands coming out every 5 minutes that you can't keep up, you know? So it's cool going over there where they really appreciate and feel the music, you know what I mean? So, and that's, and by the way, that's not a slight on US fans either, because I think that we have our own sort of thing, you know what I mean? But it is very difficult for people in the US to be able to keep up anymore because of just the amount of things happening and the music coming out. So
like if you just look at Bandcamp alone, if you just go to like new releases, it's like every day there's like 50 new albums came out in whatever
I don't blame anyone. Yeah, it's just so overwhelming.
Yeah.
So
I guess final question, I figure, like if you could pick 5 horror movies as like a suggested watch for people based on kind of your tastes, what 5 movies would you go with?
Well, obviously I'd go with Jaws, and Jacob's Ladder. I would, if I were going to delve into the Universal monsters, which of course I will, Wolfman and Dracula are my 2 favorites, with Frankenstein running a close second. Trying to think of at least one more that I would suggest. That, you know, a movie that I really like that I don't even know if it's necessarily horror, but there's this movie called Gothic that it's about the so when Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein, her and a bunch of friends took laudanum in Lord Byron's castle, and this is where she got the idea. And this movie Gothic is about that experience in Lord Byron's castle. So I would actually suggest that it's horror-esque, but not really. It gets pretty crazy, but it's a cool background story for horror stories. Huh. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I haven't heard of that. I'm gonna check that out. That sounds
it's called Gothic. Very interesting.
Mary Shelley's kind of just a fascinating case in general.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
All right, so that's pretty much all I had. Kit, you got anything you wanted to bring up?
I'm still wallowing in shame over the Universal Monster thing.
Right, as you should.
As you should.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's pretty much it. Thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Awesome to have
Thank you. I appreciate having me.
So I'll throw up some links whenever I post the episode to like the Bandcamp for the live albums.
Awesome.
And I highly recommend checking them out. They're both great. And,
thank you so much.
Good luck in Europe. Touring. Stay safe. All that jazz.
Yeah, when I come back, I will be doing some dates in the U.S. too, but we're just getting them together right now.
I'm just throwing it out there. I'm in Ohio.
Yep. Actually, if you probably around May or June, I'll probably be up there.
I will be there. Because I've never I never got to see Boysetsfire. I haven't seen like anything you've done, and I'm dying to. So
awesome. I'll definitely be around.
All right, nice. All right, man. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you guys. Appreciate it.
I hope you suffer, but why?
But why?